The following story was submitted to us with the request we read it word for word. I'm a professional that met a professional scammer. My story angers me. I'm not sure if it's because of how I was scammed or by who, but I'm still upset and angry over the entire situation. And I hope sharing this helps me heal and maybe helps others who are struggling. I want to remain anonymous to your viewers of your channel for my own privacy, and out of respect, please do not use my name, but these are my words. I'm a professional woman. Listen, I've worked to get to where I'm at. I was the first woman in my family to graduate from college. I grew up very poor and went on to a scholarship for an all-black college. I did my family proud. I own several insurance office franchises in the Michigan area. I will remain vague about the city just to keep my privacy, and I will withhold the name, but it's a company many of you probably know very well and maybe likely have insurance through this company if you own a home, car, boat, etc. I've been doing this type of work for the better part of 10 years. So let's put this very clearly for everyone. I'm a financially stable, educated, professional black woman. I have a nice car, I have a home that's paid for, and I take care of me, myself, and I. I have no children and had a handful of lackluster relationships in my life, but never married, and I'm 43 years old, and I was 40 when this event occurred. I've never been one to date. I've tried speed dating here and there, but honestly I didn't have the time for it, and I didn't want to make time. I don't want to waste time going on a date with a dud. I guess it sounds cold, but the old adage, many fish in the sea, neglects to tell you that the fish that are still in the sea are either crazy, 6 times divorced, or with 11 kids and unemployed, and a professional broke man. In other words, I haven't had success in finding a mate through in-person dating, not that I did a whole lot of it. Yes, colleagues have tried to set me up with guys they knew in the insurance business, but no one really challenged me or entertained me or stirred any interest in a real future. I don't want to waste time. I come across quite direct and bold. I know what I want in life. I know where I'm going in my business, my professional career. So, to say I fell for a romance scam is surprising, but I'm sharing this to tell you that anyone can become a victim. When I turned 40, I found myself honestly feeling a bit unhappy when it came to having someone to care about me. I work sometimes 14-hour days and come home to an empty house, cook a meal for one, and that was getting to me. But don't get me wrong, I'm not desperate, and I wasn't desperate then. But I was starting to feel a bit alone and wanting companionship. Someone to share my feelings, my day with. What sister doesn't want to come home to a romantic meal with a nice man, right? I ended up on a paid dating site. The membership was $29 a month for 6 months. I started out as a fun experiment to see what kind of men I might meet. When I set up my profile, I actually didn't put that I wanted someone in my area or anything like that. I kind of liked the idea of maybe meeting someone long distance and working up to meeting in person in the future. It kind of worked for me if I met someone like that because I could spend time getting to know them on the inside before meeting. I like to pick apart someone's mind before meeting in person anyways, and in-person dating was always the opposite. You can't get to know someone during a 45-minute meal. I put up a photo of me that was recent, and not a professional one, as my work photos can easily be Googled and show my company information. I used a photo of me taken at a barbecue from a few months prior. I put a short biography and made my home city 100 miles from where I actually live and work, just for safety. I put up my likes, dislikes, and that I was looking for a man 35 to 50 who's a professional in business, the normal stuff you're looking for when meeting someone online. I laughed when I did this profile, as I absolutely had no expectations at all to connect or meet anyone. After a few hours, I started to receive alerts that I had messages on my profile. A couple of guys who messaged me just wrote "sup," or they hit me up, which made me hit the delete button. I wasn't looking for a hookup or a homeboy. A couple other guys sent a few X-rated photos of their private parts and the typical sexualized predatory garbage some men send to women. A few more days had passed, and I had gotten a couple messages from military guys, business professionals, to which I did reply to them, but their messages were all the same. I'm a widow with a kid, deployed widow with a kid. I wasn't looking to be a new stepmom, and back then I didn't realize that that's a regular story that scammers tell their prey. I just genuinely wasn't interested in being a mother to a young child. Dating a man with a child wasn't a deal breaker for me totally, but these guys that messaged me right away wanted me to email their kid, which is weird to me. My inbox was met with more no's and blocks than finding anyone I might really want to talk to. One evening after work, I was doing my normal stuff, cooking for one, scrolling through my email inbox, when I got a message on the dating site from a man named Martin. He said he was 38. He was quite handsome from his profile pic, tall, and it said he was into building and construction as a contractor. His profile said he lived in Los Angeles. He sent me a message saying he was hoping to find love on the site, and my profile picture came up. He wondered if it was a mistake because I was, quote, too beautiful for a dating site. I kind of laughed at his corny line, but it was refreshing after all the dick pics and sup girl, sup mama, wanna smash messages I was getting. Or the other ones I was getting, which was, am a widow, dear, write my lovely daughter. I messaged him back saying he's reached the front door of level 1, as he didn't send a picture of his junk or tell me to email his kid at boarding school. He told me that was crazy, and he said he was a gentleman and he was new to online dating. He told me he's never been married and has no kids. He was a professional in business and owned a contracting and construction company. They did construction on building across the globe. He said he was much too busy to date in person and was looking to meet someone on a deeper level. Okay, so he passed the test. He was well written and didn't seem crazy. We started to chat on the dating site, but the site itself, even though it was a paid site, limited your messages to so many characters and so many messages per day. They limited how many messages you could see and send every day, which made chatting a bit of a challenge. Martin suggested we chat on another platform, that we had unlimited messages, and at the time I didn't see anything wrong with it, as I was getting frustrated sending short character messages through the site, which limited me. He suggested we chat on WhatsApp. Now, normally I wouldn't give my number to a stranger, and I asked if there was another place we could chat, but I went ahead and exchanged numbers and added him on WhatsApp. I could have added him to my Facebook or Instagram, but I paused before I did all that because my social media had my personal work info and more, and I wasn't ready yet for him to see all that. He had a Los Angeles phone number, and he said he lived in LA but worked globally. He said he was currently in Kenya building roads and bridges for the government on a contract. He even sent me photos of a construction site that it looked like it was taken in Africa. He stated he was so proud of his work because he was able to give back to the motherland. And I was happy to hear that he was so proud of his work, and I told him that years ago I had done a DNA test on one of those sites, and it said that my family had originally come from Cameroon according to my DNA, and it was exciting to trace my roots. Martin then shared with me that he said his mother was from Nigeria and his father was from Togo, that he had grown up in Los Angeles, but he had lived in Togo for many years with his father and mother, as his father was in the government there on contracts. He said his father was a diplomat for the U.S. government, and his father worked in Togo for many, many years. I thought this was all very interesting. I had no reason not to believe him. He said he had a sister who lived in New York who was married with 3 kids, that his parents had passed away many years ago in a plane accident. He even sent me a news story about the plane crash in Togo that he says his parents were on. I decided to share with him my story. I grew up in poverty in Michigan. My family, while proud of me, was less than perfect. My father was a drug addict who often was never around, and when he was, he brought violence and the gang life into our home. My mother, well now reformed and a wonderful woman, was at that time also into drugs. So needless to say, my upbringing was very negative. Hunger was a real thing growing up, as was neglect, violence, and school was the only thing that kept me sane. which is why I think I got as far as I did. I put my whole soul into school. Martin listened, and we chatted on WhatsApp for quite a while that night before I had to get some sleep. He told me all about his business. He even sent me a website of his company, and it showed him as the owner/CEO. Martin wanted to talk to me on the phone that night, but I declined as I was just so exhausted and had stayed up super late chatting with him, and I told him I would call him another night, and we bid our farewells. I think it was the day after that I ended up texting him. He did send a good morning text to me with a cup of coffee emoji, but I didn't reply till the next morning, which was my Saturday, and I had 2 beautiful days off of work. I told him I was sorry for not replying yesterday, that I had been just busy and exhausted. He understood and said he's been busy bidding on a new project which would take him to Ghana to build a super highway with a pedestrian bridge. It was a big contract and he wanted it badly. It would bring loads of work, he said, to the people of Ghana. I wished him the best in getting it. I then told him I owed him a phone call and called him on WhatsApp. We spoke on the phone for about an hour, and he did have an accent, but it wasn't heavy, it was very slight, and he said it was due to him living in his formative years in Togo with his parents. For the most part, he sounded American, except for some words that were pronounced a bit differently. We shared our hopes and thoughts. He talked about his contract, and this is when I started to open up more about myself. I had told him I worked and owned an insurance franchise, and prior to this, I only told him that I was a business professional. I started sharing a lot more than I probably should have, but I told him the name of my company, where I worked, the locations of my franchises, and he said he'd never been to Michigan. And when I asked where his company is located in Los Angeles, he gave me the same address which was on his website. His company website had a company phone and fax number. When I Googled the phone number, it came up with the website, and I thought I was doing my due diligence of investigating someone. We continued our online chats and phone calls. He video called me one day at a construction site and showed me all of the work he was doing. It was his voice, and he was showing me the construction before the camera cut off. He then vanished from WhatsApp for about an hour, and my messages were going unread. He then texted me later, saying the connection is poor where he's at, and he was so sorry. I totally understood and hoped that we could video chat later on, and he said, "Absolutely, my dear." We continued texting, and a few days later Martin called me on video. He was in a car driving. He said the connection was poor, but asked if he could see me and I could see him. He was even more handsome on the video call. He said he was driving on his way to a job site and wanted to say hello and that he was thinking of me. The call didn't last very long, a few minutes, and there was a bit of a lag, but that was understanding seeing he's in another country driving to a job site. Admittingly, I was smitten with him. He was so handsome, well-spoken, and intelligent. We would have late-night phone conversations about life, politics, and more. He was very educated when it came to politicians and political issues and welfare issues in places like Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, and Kenya. We would talk about corruption both in America and in places in Africa, and I would tell him I hoped one day to see several countries in Africa. Cameroon would be on the top of my list. I admit I was crushing and falling for this guy. He would always send me pictures of himself, and I had no reason to doubt that I wasn't talking to the man in the photo. He would send me good morning pictures saying he was at the hotel, and would send me a photo of himself in a robe drinking coffee. He would send pictures of himself at the office where he was working at and be sitting behind a desk. He even said he was going out for dinner and took a selfie eating dinner. I was falling for this man, but also knew he worked abroad, and he said he would be traveling to Ghana as he got the contract that he wanted. He said he would be in Ghana for 8 weeks and then return to his home in Los Angeles, and he asked me when he returned if we could meet. I was absolutely excited to see him. We talked on the phone nightly, video chatted a few times, but the connection was always poor on video. It would freeze often, but we would talk deep into the night. I shared every single thing about myself to this man. We would talk about meeting, romantic things, and late at night a few times we had some sexually motivated chats. It was like being in a relationship, but we just had the miles between us. He showed me photos of Accra, Ghana, where he was now working. He took photos daily of the area, the construction, and where he was working. Video, photos, everything looked real. Even his company website showed he was working on this project. I shared with him all of my information of where I worked, pictures of me that were used for my company advertisement, franchising, and more. He showed me photos of his home in Los Angeles, and I had no reason not to believe him. One night while chatting, he asked if I would consider marrying him if things worked out in person. I was shook, and I thought I was half crazy, but I said, yeah, I would. I had never connected with a man like this before. In all my years of dating and speed dates, in-person drink dates, colleague dates, I never connected with a man like this. We continued our relationship, and in a couple weeks before he was to return to Los Angeles, things got a bit weird. He chatted less and less, and my good morning messages faded, and I finally asked Martin what was going on. He said he was having issues with the government in Ghana, and that they were refusing to pay him his check for the work he did with the contract, which was for $1.2 million. He said since he's not in the USA currently, the bank he does business with wouldn't accept the transfer because he has to come into the bank in person to verify his identity. He said it was because the payment was such a high amount that they regulated the amounts and he would have to bring the check to the bank in person. The problem was not the check, though. It was that the money he was depending on to cover the expenses for the workers' pay and his travel was dependent on this check from the government. I urged him to use a credit card to book a flight home, but he says his bank debit card was frozen because of his attempt to deposit this check, and he had come to the bank to identify himself before they would release his account. I asked him if he had a credit card for his company, to which he said he had things stolen by the hotel clerk in Kenya. All he had was his debit card from his bank and his passport. He had reported his credit cards stolen and they were all frozen. He didn't mention all this to me because he didn't want to make me worry or cause any problems. He was very stressed out, and I told him not to pull away from me. When I asked if I could help, if I could call his bank to explain things as I'm in the USA, he said it was worth a try, and he gave me the number to his bank in Los Angeles, which was Chase Bank. When I called the number, I got an automated recording to press 1 for customer service. Then a recording came on saying, due to high call volume, please leave a callback number and we'll get back to you. This is happening for a lot of businesses, so I left my number and waited, but no one ever called me back. In the meantime, Martin was very distressed. He said his workers needed to get paid and he needed to leave soon and book his flight home. I asked him if he could reach out to colleagues, and he said he ran the company. He didn't want to alarm his coworkers, investors, or anyone that he couldn't handle the finances. He felt he could trust me and said a king always leans on his queen in the darkest moments. I asked him what else I could do, and that's when he became upset and asked me if I could loan him the money to pay the workers and for his flight home. He said he would be home in a few days and could get to the bank, fix his account, and then bring me the money or wire it to my bank. He said he hated being a weak black man asking his queen for help. I paused for a bit thinking what to do. I tried every outlet, from calling his bank to reaching out to his company website. I even emailed his assistant manager that was listed on his website, to which I never received a reply. I asked him how much he needed to pay his workers, and he told me it was $75,000 total, and then another $5,000 for his flight home since he was booking it so close to his travel time. He wants to leave, and it was more expensive, so $80,000 in total. I was taken back by this, but at the same time I felt I could trust him. He knew how hard I worked and how I pulled myself out of poverty as a child to be the successful woman I am. I had hesitated, but then told him I could make it happen. I had substantial savings from my years of work and could pull the money out of my savings, which was for my retirement, and wire it to him directly. He then told me he couldn't get the money directly due to his account being frozen, and he asked me if I could wire it to the construction manager in Accra, Ghana, so he could pay the workers, and then the manager would use the remaining $5,000 to help book his flight home. I agreed to it. I don't know why I did. Looking back, it was because I trusted him emotionally. He gave me the name of a man in Ghana who was the construction manager and had me wire the money to his account in Accra, Ghana. I went the next day to my bank and did the transfer, but it was actually quite an ordeal. The bank required me to have the man's account to who I'm being transferred the money to, his phone number, how I knew him. I had to sign a document stating I am knowingly sending the money, that I knew this person, and I had to text Martin for the manager's phone number, to which Martin questioned why. I snapped a picture of the bank's requirements for sending the money and explained to him it's an anti-terrorism fraud document I had to sign, so that they are not responsible and that I knowingly sent this money to a person who I know and I know who they are, etc. Martin gave me the first and last name of the construction manager and his phone number. The bank also required his address, I think to show I knew the person. I'm not totally sure, but that's what they required. They said if the amount was under $10,000, they wouldn't have required anything. Martin gave me all the information. I was able to send the money, but there would be a 2-day hold due to the amount and the location of the transfer. I explained it all to Martin, and he said the construction manager was waiting for the transfer slip information so he could check with his bank. I snapped a pic of all the paperwork and transfer slip information and texted it to Martin. We continued our online chat, voice calls, and he thanked me so much. It was about a day and a half later when Martin told me that the construction manager was able to secure the money. Martin then sent me a copy of his airline ticket which the construction manager was able to purchase for him, which was to Los Angeles, and then he had another ticket from Los Angeles to my hometown in Michigan. He said he wanted to fix the bank issues and fly to meet me and give me my money in person. I was excited and relieved to know he was mentioning giving the money back that I had loaned him. A little tiny part of me thought he would vanish. I know he was legit, but a little voice inside me said that it was a bit unsure. The day Martin was leaving Ghana, he took a photo of the airport and sent it to me. He said he would call me when he landed in Los Angeles. I waited for his flight that would take him to me a few days later. I told Martin I loved him, to which he said he loved me too. He did message me when he landed in Los Angeles and took a photo of the LAX airport. He said he was heading back to the bank to fix things and would call me when done. A few hours later, Martin called and said he was able to straighten out the account and cash the check. He showed me a photo of what was $80,000 in a briefcase. He said he pulled my money out in cash and would be returning it to me in person. He argued a bit with me about it and said he would not leave it in the bank after all the trouble they caused him. I didn't want to argue, so I left it at that. The day his flight was supposed to leave, Martin sent me a message saying he was boarding the flight and took a selfie of him sitting in the plane at first class. His flight was supposed to arrive at 3:15 p.m. Michigan time. I had agreed to meet him at the airport and pick him up. We would then go to the bank and deposit the money and then go to dinner, our first date. I arrived and parked at the airport and went inside the arrival area. His flight that he'd shown me on board was landed, and it would be letting out at gate 7A. I waited by the unloading pickup area, and his gate would be let out right there, so he would just have to walk down a small hallway to the main area, and there I would be. I waited, all dressed up and excited to meet this handsome man I had fallen head over heels in love with. As the flight landed and unloaded, I didn't see Martin. I looked and waited and waited. After an hour, I decided to find some help. I asked the airline if the flight from Los Angeles had emptied, and she said yes, the plane itself has left the ramp and is being loaded and refueled for another flight. I showed her a copy of the airline ticket and explained my situation, and my text from Martin had gone unread. She took a look at the photo of the airline ticket and explained to me that that's a fake ticket. She showed me the number and the airline ticket, and it was an old style of ticket the airline no longer used. I started to feel sick, and she asked if I was okay. I explained the entire situation to her, to which she says she thought I maybe had been scammed. She called over a colleague of hers at the airport to double-check the ticket for me. The woman confirmed that the ticket photo was fake. I then swiped and showed them photos of Martin and asked if they had seen this man, to which they have not. The one woman radioed on her walkie-talkie and was able to call over a supervisor who also confirmed that the ticket was fake. I asked this woman if she has seen this man named Martin. If this wasn't fate, I don't know what was, but the woman, plain as day, said to me, "Yes, I know him. That's Frederick Leonard. He's a Nigerian actor and model. I'm originally from Nigeria. I would know this man everywhere. He's a celebrity." She then Googled with my phone for me and showed me his website and photos of this actor. And all the photos that Martin had sent me were on his website. I felt more than sick. The woman was so kind to me and told me to phone the police and asked if I needed help getting to my car. I told them no, and I went directly to the police, but not before calling Martin over and over and over with no answer. I filed a police report, to which the cops looked at and treated me like I'd lost my damn mind. They said to file a report with IC3, that's all you could do. I went home absolutely sick, shaking, and even contemplated ending everything because I felt so stupid, and all the money I had worked and saved for was gone because of my own stupidity. I genuinely thought he was real. I YouTubed Frederick Leonard and came across tons of videos, including some Martin had used on our video chat. He just dubbed over the voice, even the videos of this actor in his car. I tried over and over to call Martin, and nothing went through. No messages were read. I knew I'd been scammed, and I ended up sending a text telling him I knew who he was, to which it went unread. I think he either blocked me or just abandoned the WhatsApp account because it never showed him online again. I became angry at myself, at this Martin or whoever he was, to take advantage of a kind-hearted and educated person and make them look like a fool. One thing I did have was the Ghana number to this construction manager. I entered the number into WhatsApp, to which a photo came up of a younger guy who looked to be maybe in his early 20s. The name was Botwe on the WhatsApp profile. I ended up calling the number directly, but blocking my number first. I wanted to see who would answer. There was a delay, and then I directly asked to speak to Martin/Botwe and that I knew I was scammed. There was no sound for a few seconds. I then heard an exhale and a young guy say, "It's me, I am Martin." I then listened to this young guy tell me he was very sorry that he scammed me, but that he needed money. He then said he was taking care of his family, brothers and sisters, and they were dying without food and medicine and things for their home. I was angry and felt a bit of sadness for him. He said his name was Botwe and that he was 35 from Ghana. I told him, well, his WhatsApp profile picture looks like a young 20-something guy, and he laughed. He said he was 35, single, and he was afraid to be honest with me because I was so beautiful. He didn't know if I would talk to a poor boy like him. I roasted him, telling him that he knew how I grew up poor, and he had lots of opportunities to be honest with me. I would have likely kept a relationship with him as himself, and how dare he scam me, a sister whose family roots trace back to Africa. He said he was sorry and he was so hungry. He told me this long-winded story about his family is all sick, no work, no money, and they need food, suffering at the hands of the government. He then asked if we could still be together, to which I told him I had to think about it and I didn't know who really he was. I hung up with him and did my own research. I went into Facebook and entered his Ghana number into search, and much to my surprise and sickness, I found Botwe's lived in Accra, Ghana. However, he's far from the poor, suffering 35-year-old man portrayed in his phone chat. He was 22 according to his info on Facebook, and he looked 22. He had a girlfriend, or at least a woman he was grinding and kissing on in some of his online videos and photos who he called his wifey. There looked to be a baby in the picture in the home, which I suspect was his. He had tons of photos on Facebook about don't hate the hustle, be jealous of the cash, and I get photos of himself hiding money, stacks of cash and phones next to his laptop. I called Botwe back, this time on WhatsApp, for a video call, but he wouldn't answer. So I called him on audio only and confronted him, screaming and having an absolute meltdown. I told him I knew who he was, and I was looking at his Facebook. As we talked and I screamed at him, he blocked me from his Facebook. He told me I was a stupid woman, F you, and all sorts of obscenities. That's nice. This poor, humble man turned into a monster who admitted he'd scam me because he could, and that I was a slave to America, and that he was taking what was rightfully his. He told me he would kill me, and then told me to send another $80,000 so he could buy a new car. I hung up and blocked him. I turned his information into law enforcement, which I'm sure they did nothing with but used the information as a coffee cup holder. I'm absolutely sick over the entire situation and the fact that he used being poor as an excuse when in reality he was not poor. He had a nicer TV than I did in his Facebook profile pics. He took advantage of me and my kindness, and I'm still angry and absolutely heartbroken. This goes out to my sisters. Don't you think for 1 minute these scammers won't target you. They're after everyone's cash, sisters alike. I still get random messages from fakes on WhatsApp, and I just block them. I've taken myself off the dating profile. I'll rebuild what he took. No one can crush my kingdom. But I hope this little young criminal gets his day. If not by my hand, then by the good Lord's. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, and thank you for keeping me anonymous. We'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. It's a little bit different type of scam. The scammer actually used a photo of a Nigerian actor who is very well known. Unfortunately, his photos are used often in online scams. If you'd like to share your story, you can find us on Facebook under the page Scamming Scammers Action, or drop us an email, scammingscammers@gmail.com. Give us some time to verify your story, and we'll upload it into a video. Thanks for listening. Be safe.